Good morning, everybody. We have a mostly higher trade in the grain markets here early on Thursday morning. It is 6:30 a.m. Central Time. Excuse me. We have May corn futures nearby contract up 6 3/4 at 6.93. July corn futures up 5 1/4 at 6.49 1/4. December corn is up half a cent at 5.47. Nearby May soybeans up 12 1/2 at 15.70 1/4. The July soybean contract is up 8 3/4 cents at 15.22 1/2. November beans up a half cent at 13.28 1/2. July Chicago wheat up 4 1/4 at 7.27. July Kansas City wheat up 2 3/4 at 6.99 1/4. Spring wheat's up about 5 or 6 cents here. If you're listening on the podcast, as always, appreciate it. Leave me a review, leave me some feedback if you have not already. If you guys are listening on the podcast or you're watching on YouTube and you have some ideas for additional videos or episodes or questions that you'd like me to answer, certainly chime in. You can send me an email to info@standardgrain.com. You can always drop a comment in the YouTube channel. And remember, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you hit the like button. If you need some additional assistance from me, go to my website. It is www.standardgrain.com. Go to that website, click on Grain Marketing Plan here in the upper right-hand corner. For $49 a month, I offer a subscription service, which is really geared toward grain marketing. It includes a morning newsletter, which goes out every business day at 6:30 a.m. Central Time, a text message service, subscriber-only videos and content where I really talk about grain marketing specific items, any sort of consulting that you might need. This is a monthly deal that can be canceled at absolutely any time. Certainly check that out. To get into some of the headlines here this morning, we had our weekly ethanol report out yesterday from EIA. Weekly ethanol production has been kind of sluggish here. 945,000 barrels per day last week. That was only up about half a percentage point on the week. It was still down 7.7% versus the same week in 2019, which is our last, pre-COVID year. Ethanol stocks continue to move lower. Stocks now under 20 million barrels, 19.736. The stocks are down 3.5% on the week, down 13% versus the same week in 2019. So ethanol stocks seasonally are the lowest, I believe, since 2014. Gasoline demand was down 2.5% on the week, but only down 3.9% in gasoline demand versus the same week in 2019. So we are very close to getting back to normal in terms of gasoline consumption. We're going to need to start producing more ethanol here at some point in time. I don't know if ethanol producers are having trouble procuring corn. I know that a couple of these big plants, those big ADM plants, are slated to come back online here. So you may see a jump here over the next several weeks or months. The Chinese government has reported another case of African swine fever. This is the 10th such report since the beginning of the year. Most of these have been pretty small, though. This outbreak that's being officially reported impacted 432 pigs, of which 343 died. The quote from the Ag Ministry was this: "The epidemic is occurring in spots and no regional outbreaks have occurred." Now, there are some non-government sources, some private sources, who have indicated that the recent outbreak is quite a bit larger than what the government has suggested. But just like the last go around in 2018 and 2019, that may continue to be the case if this thing becomes a bigger deal and we see this resurgence grow. Brazilian weather forecasts still mostly dry. I don't really see much change here. I mean, you look out past the first week of May, and there really is not much relief in sight for these dry areas in regard to the second corn crop. Most of these key central and southern corn growing areas have very little relief in sight. So that story has really not changed a whole lot. And I know that traders are monitoring those weather forecasts very, very closely. U.S. weather is kind of a mixed bag as farmers plant corn and soybeans. Some areas, including parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, have seen rains over the last couple of days, significant rains in some cases. Western areas have been much drier by comparison. Planting in areas of the Corn Belt and also the plains should see a pretty quick pace moving this week. I think you're going to see a big jump in planting progress on Monday. Now, further east, over the next 7 days in particular, places like Indiana and Ohio are going to see some heavier rains, so you may see kind of a hold up there. So, there's no such thing as a perfect planting season, but I think things are going to move pretty quickly. The Fed was out yesterday. Jerome Powell says that inflation could rise, but only temporarily. Powell spoke following the Fed's two-day meeting yesterday. He signaled that The central bank is not ready to tighten policy anytime soon. They are going to essentially stick with their low interest rate policy. They're going to stick with their monthly bond purchases. In regard to inflation, Powell indicated that inflation pressure could rise in the coming months, but that, quote, these one-time increases in prices are likely to have only transitory effects on inflation. So the Fed sticking with the idea here that any sort of inflation will be only temporary and will only last for, it will be a one-time increase, and it will have a kind of a short-term effect. And there's a lot of people that would probably argue with that, I think. We'll have our export sales report out this morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. Both old and new crop combined, we're looking for corn about 500,000 up to 1.6, soybeans 100 up to 700, wheat 200 to 750. Cattle market finished lower yesterday, close to the lows of the session. Not a great looking trade in the cattle or the feeder cattle here recently. There was some cash cattle trade, maybe 118 to 120. I think most of it at 119. We'll see what develops here today. In the outside markets, we've got the Dow Jones up 130 points. The S&P's up 28. Strong looking action in the stock market. What else is new? Precious metals a little bit higher. We've got the U.S. dollar about flat. Crude oil is up 84 cents in the June WTI, 64.69. Bonds are lower. If you guys need some more information, check out my website. You can send me an email, info@standardgrain.com if you have questions. Everybody have a great day. I'll talk to you a little bit later.